There are different types of adoption in Pennsylvania, and the two that we're going to talk about are the closely related adoption, where you're adopting maybe a stepchild or a sibling or someone close in your family. And then there's the unrelated adoption. And the difference really between the two is that when you're unrelated, you're going to have a home study. A home study is a background report investigation before you'll be able to have the adoption go through. In addition, when you have a family adoption, you're usually going to have the termination of parental rights done. Sometimes when you're adopting outside through an agency, that's already been done. But if it is a family adoption, you're usually trying to terminate the rights of a spouse that is no longer involved with the children so that the step parent can adopt. So you're going to have to do a petition to terminate parental rights and go through that process first before you can then have the adoption. And you're going to need the petition for adoption as well. When you're going through adoption, there's a lot of things that you're going to have out-of-pocket expenses. In addition to filing fees, you are going to have to publish in a newspaper and you're going to incur those costs. You're also going to have, fingerprint checks that need to stay current. So you may, depending on how long the adoption takes, need to get that done several times. Adoption does require a hearing. It's a relatively short hearing once you go to court. And in most cases, unless it's against the best interest of the child, the adoption will go through as long as the termination has already taken place and the person has passed the background checks. And then at that time, you can request that the birth certificate be changed if you need to change the name at the same time to the name perhaps of your current spouse if you're terminating the father's parental rights if they're no longer involved with the child. In order to terminate someone's parental rights, you need to, the person cannot be really involved. It's not just a matter of and easy with the court that it's going to terminate someone's parental rights. It can be done by consent or it can be involuntary. If it's done by consent, it's obviously much easier. If it's involuntary, there needs to be circumstances that would warrant such a drastic measure. And usually the biggest factor that the court's going to look at is the relationship of the child with that person. So if the child has no relationship and hasn't seen the person in a long time, you're going to have a much easier time terminating the rights than if it's just someone that's in addiction that can't parent but has an interest and has expressed an interest. The best thing to do would be to consult an attorney that's experienced in adoption. If you need any assistance, you can contact our office. And it is something that, needs to be given great weight. When you do adopt a child, you take on the responsibility for that child emotionally as well as financially. So if you are adopting a stepchild, even if your marriage ends in divorce, you are going to be financially responsible for that child, even if the mother reconciles with the natural father. So it has happened. I've seen it happen. It may seem a little unfair, but it's something that you want to give great thought to before you decide to take on that responsibility. But it is something that is very rewarding to people who do. So you want to make sure you weigh the pros and the cons and understand all the ramifications.